And we are live. Now, we are live with Everything is Attitude. We're getting back into the groove, right, Rosemary? You're on the mend, hopefully.
Doing my best.
Yes.
But
Before we started, we were hoping, Rosemary was hoping that the coughing subsided, and hopefully she'll get through this well.
yeah, I've got my little. I don't know if you can see that. I've got my little thing to suck if I really can't control the coughing. I'll just suck on this and leave you to do the talking. We are actually. Well, let me first say, are you done with you saying hello and everything?
Yeah, well, hello to you, Rosemary.
Hello to everybody out there. I was just about to say to you, my friend Mary Lou is joining us, and she just walked through the door. Hi, darling. With just this second, when I'm going to apologise once again to everybody because I just can't stop this wretched coughing sometimes. But it's much better. I thank you, everyone, for all of your lovely thoughts, sent all your healing. I had Native Americans in a sweat lodge apparently today sending me healing. I really did feel that good energy. So thank you to everybody out there who's been sending all their good wishes and so on and so forth. It's obviously working because I'm talking, and my breathing is a little better today too. So I know it doesn't seem like it, but can we say hello, Mary Lou?
Hello, hello.
She doesn't necessarily want to be on camera, but yeah, she looked really good, so you could come on camera if you want to. No, she said. Okay, that's all right. We always say to people, all right, if you want to do this or you have an issue or a situation that you want to talk about, but you don't want to be on camera or you'd rather not talk about it, we're happy to talk about it for you. And I do have such a situation. I'm sort of diving in here, Al, a little bit, but I know you have something to talk about as well. You had a situation happen today, and I've had a situation that's been happening throughout the last few weeks, actually, with quite a few different people. I think it must be the new year, and
Yeah.
everybody's taking a really good look at life, how it's unfolding, what we should maybe change or if we can change. I think people sort of had, a lot of people had an epiphany on New Year's Eve thinking, can't do this anymore, but what can I do? And I've had lots of emails from different people, but I'm thinking of one person in particular who I mentioned briefly yesterday was struggling because her husband is obviously an alcoholic and a gamblerholic, something like that. Yeah, I think that's right. Anyway, he has those two issues, and she was lovely in her email, full of concerns for him. What about him? Could we send healing for him? Yes, of course, he's got an issue, he's got a problem. A lot of people will tell you, and it's people firmly believe that alcoholism is an illness, gambling is an illness, etc., etc. And yes, it is. However, well, anyway, I'll leave that for now because I don't want to turn people off before we've even begun the show. I'm going to probably shock a few people with my own feelings in that regard. But basically, we're going to talk today, I think, Al, a little bit about what can people do if you find yourself in a situation in life, if you find yourself in a situation or those you love in a situation, what can we do? How can we change other people? Because we're always wanting to do that. How can we make someone stop drinking? How can we make an aggressive person into a kind person? What can we actually do to help those people? And as a healer and as a natural caregiver, and for more than 40 years being able to fix everybody, not quite everybody, but you know what I mean. I am a Miss Fix It, and people do come to me for help and advice on how to fix their issues or other people's issues. And I'm so used to being able to give good advice. I'm so used to being able to help people to fix their situations, that when I found myself a few years ago in that same situation of being with an alcoholic, I just, hey, never thought twice about it. I knew I could fix him. Was I ever wrong? But let's hear from you, because I know that you have a situation going on, or have recently had a situation going on.
Yeah, so I think, I've spoken to you about a few times with business and job related stuff, dealing with certain people, and whether it's your peers or your boss, right? This particular instance involves a role that I have in one of my business ventures, but essentially I go above and beyond in almost everything I do, especially with my businesses.
I would say that that's right. Knowing I know how hard you work, and I know you put 150% into whatever it is you do.
Yeah, so with this particular role, I do put in much more time than even the return as far as financial. Probably way more time than I need, than I should, based on what I get back financially. But it is good for me. It's good for my professional gains and career and all that stuff. So I continue to do it. But I had a situation today where I did some really great things for the organization that I'm talking about, that could really mean some positive gains overall for the people that I work with, the team that I work with. And I think when you do something like that, when I do something like that, my hope is that it's appreciated, right? And and but
appreciation now, are we?
Yeah. So you hope that it's appreciated based on what you're doing, but I think by doing that, I know that hope sometimes becomes expectation. So that's the challenge, right? But the response was not positive to that, and in fact negative to something else. So it's one of those things where it becomes stressful for myself to be in this situation, to be involved with this organization. It's essential to me right now, but it's stressful, and I would love to be able to change the system and the people that are involved, but it's impossible to do that. Number one, because a few of the people that are involved are just not, I don't know if they're either aware enough or care enough, or maybe they just have the right perspective that's different from mine. I don't know, but I don't think they are going to change. So my reaction to these is to get down on myself and get depressed, and to all that good stuff that I probably did that actually is good stuff goes away in one fell swoop, because I just have this tendency to really almost start beating myself up about it, and get down about it.
Because you were expecting.
Correct.
And I always tell my students, and it's a really hard thing to learn, but I always tell my students, if you expect,
you'll always be disappointed.
Always, not always, but
almost always, yeah.
You'll be disappointed at least, 3/4 of the time when you expect, you say something nice to someone. Because you expect that they're going to say something nice back, or you smile at someone and you expect they're going to smile back at you. When you expect of other people what you would consider right behavior,
right,
you're going to be disappointed. And I always say to my students, by all means, be hopeful.
Right.
But if you expect, you are courting disappointment, and also, worst of all, disillusionment. And I think that's what you're dealing with right now, Al. You're dealing with disillusionment. I could say to you, because I know you and I know this situation. It's been ongoing for a long time. This is not something happened new today, but
Right, but it is ongoing. Yeah.
the hopes and expectations of these people that you're dealing with have been you've had dealings with them for a long, long time, and they've always disappointed you.
Right.
They've never ever met your expectations, and as
Right.
I've just said, you expect, and you're going to be disappointed. So I'm asking you a direct question, and the direct question, the answer should not be because it's financially viable, because you've had plenty of time over the years to figure something else out.
Right.
So why do you continue to beat your head against the wall, expecting things of other people that you're not actually you're never going to get what you expect from them? So I'm not looking at them as you are, unfortunately. You're looking to change them. You're looking, well, if only I do this then, or if I try this, or I give them this, maybe they'll change so miraculously. Maybe
Right.
something will happen and the light for them will go on and they'll see what it is I'm trying to do. Well, good luck with that, because we all know that's not going to happen. So why do you continue to do it?
I think it is important for my career to have this particular thing
Stop,
going right now.
stop.
Right now, I said.
There are
Right
other
now.
things that you could have done in the past.
Right.
You've plenty of time to do something about this.
Right.
So I'm going to take over here just a little bit, and I'm going to tell you that the reason that you're doing this is because you want, somehow inside of you, I feel that you want recognition from these people. You want them to recognize that, you know, you're worth something, or you are of some value to this company. And then,
Yeah.
then if you keep trying and trying and trying, at some point they'll see it.
And I think there is that. There's also ownership of projects that I've done for a number of years,
Right.
and wanting to see them come to fruition.
Right.
I think the biggest thing, and which I would love to talk about as a whole tonight too, is I do want to change mainly my reactions to that, right? And also be proactive, or more proactive, about what's important to me. And what's important is to be sort of free from this situation that's stressful, right? But instead of focusing on ways out, I am focusing on kind of treading water to stay in this situation, which
because
in a lot of ways,
you keep trying to fix it.
yes, exactly. And it's preventing me from moving into other spaces in a lot of ways.
Right. Now, I know from my own personal experience, let's talk about these people who email me, and these people who, people out there listening who find themselves in situations. We had lovely Connie yesterday on YouTube talking about the fact that her mother, she was having difficulty with her mother, and having to deal with her mother's vitriol and so on. And there are lots and lots of people in circumstances where they feel that they're being held hostage to somebody else's wants and needs and so on. And I think in some ways you have been held hostage.
Yes.
But I'm going to say that you've been held hostage, and Connie's been held hostage, and I certainly was held hostage at some point. I mean, but that's because we choose it.
We let it happen, yeah.
People can only do to you what you allow them to do. And I know when people hear me say that, they think, oh, well, it's all right for you. You know what to do. You know how to deal with it. Well, there are lots of times in my life that I didn't know what to do. There are lots of times when, I tried to fix somebody. If we go to the alcoholic that I was with, I mean, I was so sure I could fix him. And then it became apparent to me and everybody else, there was no way I was going to fix him. But I still kept trying because I just didn't want to give up, because I'm a person who doesn't like to give up. And I thought, there was my mindset all those years ago. I can't give up on him, right? Instead of eventually realizing, hold on, while I'm concentrating on not giving up on him, I've already given up on me. It's almost as if he had more value in the scheme of things than I did. And I think, one of the things that we all of us have to realize is that you can't, no matter what you try to do, you cannot change another person. You cannot change the way another person thinks or feels. Mary Lou's got her hand up here. She wants to say something. Come on, dive in then.
I was just going to say I was in that same situation as far as being with an alcoholic. And when you were just explaining about the feelings you were having, I can see myself in that same boat and just thinking those same things.
Yeah. I mean, and it's not just alcoholism. It's not, people manipulate for a variety of reasons. I mean, I have someone I know very well who has a really aggressive husband. Everybody else thinks he's wonderful, but when he gets home at night, he has temper tantrums. He doesn't hit or beat or anything like that, but he'll certainly, kick the coffee table over, or he'll, punch a hole in the wall, or he'll take his frustrations out in a really violent way, and he belittles. But I said to this person that I know very well, he can't belittle you if you're not in the room. Get out. Like I said to Connie yesterday, remove yourself. Remove yourself. Don't try to have a conversation with these people, because forget that, because that's what they want you to do. They say something in order to get a reaction from you. And when you react, you're playing their game. So it's important for us to understand that people can only do to us what we allow them to do. So at some point, if we don't take control of our own lives, simply by removing ourselves, and I'm not suggesting that you should leave your husband or your wife. I'm not suggesting that you should abandon someone. What I'm saying is that while the while the vitriol is pouring over you, as in Connie's case, or while the violence is surrounding you, as long as you're there and you put yourself in that place and you stay there with it, it is going to continue, because you're the perfect, that's what these people want. They want someone to rail against. They want someone to vent against. They want someone to make feel less than they feel themselves. So removing yourself, and as with Connie yesterday, she did, bless her, she sounds like a lovely person, and if I'd had her here with me, I'd be shaking her and saying, you are better than this. You've got to value yourself. But she said, well, I do try. She wrote in and said, well, I do try to hide away. No, I'm not talking about somebody hiding. I'm not saying that you should hide away from this situation. I'm saying remove yourself from the aggression, from the bad situation. There you are.
Yeah.
I lost you for a second there. But what I'm saying is I'm not suggesting, when I say to people, remove yourself from the situation, I'm not saying run and hide, because that's not the way either. Because at some point you've got to come out of hiding, and there you are again, this timid person doing or being whatever this person wants. You're being a punch bag for somebody else and their emotions and their feelings. I'm saying go do something else. Go do something fun. Go find a place to be where you can read a book quietly, or Find something that's enjoyable to you. Do and it's an effort. I'm not saying that it's an easy thing to do. With your situation now, I'm suggesting to you, you never can you just, I don't know what to do to drill it in. But the moment you stop trying to please them, the moment you stop trying or looking for gratification from them or approval from them, is the moment that you'll start to do things because you want to do it. And you'll get gratification by doing a good job. You'll get gratification by finding other venues, other people, other ways to be valued. Mm-hmm. I think the most important thing we can talk about today is the fact that people have a really hard time valuing themselves, especially people who are in those awful situations, because the person who puts us in that situation, or should I say the person we allow to put us in that situation, is a person who is relying on the fact that we are unsure of ourselves, uncertain of ourselves. They play on our doubts. They play on our fears. It's almost if they enjoy it, because, it's like they're flexing their muscles and they're in control. Even your people in this business situation you're in. I mean, you know that phrase, if you've got nothing nice to say, don't say anything nice at all. Mm-hmm. You can tell someone that whatever it is that they've done for you, it is just not working for them. But at the same time, you can still make a person feel good and valued. I keep losing.
And what you were saying.
Oh, sorry, back. I don't know what's going on.
I don't know. Anyway, but
can you hear me? I can't hear you.
Yeah, can you hear me?
I cannot hear you.
I can hear you. You're perfect. Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So I was asking Mary Lou when we lost you. I said, did she want to say anything? But you were saying you agree with everything I'm saying so far because you've been in that situation, right?
Right, and not valuing yourself. You have to do that first, is value yourself.
And I also think, certainly my situation with this guy, people know that somehow these people who search for victims or like, to have the control, they have an innate sense of knowing that you're the one that they can control for whatever reason it is. They have an innate sense of knowing that, that exactly that, what they say to you is going to hurt you or upset you or belittle you or make you question what it is that you're doing. And those of us who are particularly sensitive certainly are affected, when other people try to belittle and so on. But this guy I was with, it was so uncanny, because every time I came really, really close to ending it, it was almost as if he had this sense of danger. So he'd come around for 5 minutes, he'd come around and he'd say all the right things and do all the right things. Don't you? You've had that as well, right, Mary Lou?
Sure, yeah.
It was like, I've gone too far. But the minute then I, so bought into that, it would revert back again. the only way that you can make sure that you are never, ever that victim, whether it's in a business deal or whatever it is, the only way that you can make sure that you're not a victim is to learn to value yourself. You may not be, I always say, I can honestly look at myself and I'm not the best person in the world by any means. But I always say to people, this is weird, I know, if I didn't know me and I got to know me, I'd quite like me. And I think if you can say, I might not be the best person in the world, but I'm not bad. I'm a good person, basically, generally. That's when you can start to value the fact that you're a halfway good, decent person. Yes, Mary Lou, she keeps putting out it. She's like it being in a classroom situation. No, I want you to interrupt.
Well, I was going to say the other thing is when you were talking about that, what it made me think that as far as, why you don't value yourself, and when you see other people are trying to tell you to value yourself, but you never listen to maybe a multitude of people who are saying what you should be listening to.
Right. But then, you see, I always say, it's like people who are in bad marriages and they know that they have to divorce and everybody's telling them, get out or whatever. I always say, it's no good saying to somebody, this is what you need to do, because until you're ready, you're not ready. So you have to be ready. And now we've had this conversation, you and I, and I'm wondering, when are you actually going to be ready to dare to value yourself enough that you stop trying to please other people and you start doing things which you want to do and which please you? And when are you going to be ready for pleasing you to be enough?
I think that I'm echoing a little bit. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're like a robot. You're sort of wobbling a bit, but go ahead.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys could hear that. I think that I am transitioning to that, but I do revert back to not valuing myself.
Can you tell me why that is, do you think? You should know the answer to this because you've had the benefit of me for all these years, whereas people out there might have a tougher time. Can you tell me where that feeling of being less came from?
Well, for me, it stems from when I was younger, growing up.
And for a lot of people, it stems from when we were younger. Now, I'm sitting with Mary Lou, who had a fantastic life, right? Fabulous parents, fabulous brothers, family, very supportive and all the rest of it. And yet you didn't value yourself. Can you tell us where you think that being less came from for you? I've put you on the spot a little bit.
It's okay because I don't know the answer.
Well, we'll think about that and we'll work on that later. But, I think you have to, each of us individually, for those of us who did not have great parents or a great childhood, it's easy. We can pinpoint it straight away. I had who is now a very good friend of mine, but he was a patient of mine years ago. His name is John. Now, he had amazing parents. I knew them both, and grandparents. He had a life which most people would die for, and yet he had years ago he had real issues being able to value himself. And working with him for over a period of time, it turned out that sometimes when you have it too good, then you get devastated when you think everybody loves you and then somebody turns out not to, or they're mean to you, and you're devastated because you're not used to it. It can sometimes be easier for those of us who have had a tough childhood than for those of us who have had a perfect childhood. He had two things happen to him. He had a teacher who was a bully, and he was also went to the theatre with his parents to see a magician, and the magician picked on him. I think he was all of about 8 years old, and he felt ridiculed. And it's amazing that there are little things that happen to us in our lives that can cause us to doubt ourselves. And as I've said, for those of us who have had a tough life, I mean, I have to say that I'm grateful for my tough upbringing. I'm grateful for the slaps and the beatings and the you know, the disrespect, and I'm grateful for the cruelty which was often abounding in my childhood, certainly. And it sounds weird to say I'm grateful for it, but it actually did prepare me for all the other crappy stuff that was going to happen. When people have a wonderful life and they have parents who worship and adore them, you know, it must be much harder for them because they're not prepared when somebody's mean to them, a teacher or is it making sense to you, Mary Lou, when I'm saying this to you?
Yeah, now you say it, I feel like I disappointed people in my family.
Really?
When I got older and then got in that bad relationship.
Right. Okay. So, yeah. So, you know, I think it's harder for people very often. It's harder for people who have a good life than it is for those of us who didn't have a good life. I know that sounds back to front.
Excuse me 1 second, Rosemary.
Pardon?
Excuse me 1 second.
So, I know it sounds weird to say that. It sounds hard to, you know, for me to say that it's easier for those of us who've had a tough life than for those of us who have not. But I do think it is easier because I think it does prepare us. You were not prepared, were you?
No, not at all. Right.
You thought everybody was going to love you.
Well, yeah. Instead, they thought I was stupid. I mean, honestly, and wondered why I was making the decisions I was making.
Right. Right. So, yeah. So, you know, but to get back to, I just would like to talk about, because I sort of left it in the air there about the alcoholism and the gambling and all of those addictions that people go through, and I just would like, for the record, to actually put across my point of view, which is going to upset a lot of people, I'm sure. I fully accept that people who are addicted are sick. I do understand that. However, being a person who was really sick, close to dying a couple of times, I mean, like really medically close to dying a couple of times, and having had issues all of my life of one sort or another, we talked a little bit about that last week. If you're sick, see, this is where my common sense comes in. But I'm also speaking from a place of emotion and looking at it from an emotional point of view. To my way of reasoning, if you're sick, you have two choices. You can get help or you can suffer and eventually die. But the choice is yours at the end of the day. It is your choice at the end.
You still there? Technology is not our friend today.
No, well, you know. But I want to clarify this before we cut off again.
Yeah.
I don't want people to think I'm totally unsympathetic, because I'm not. But I firmly believe at the end of the day, I mean, there are some fabulously courageous people out there who were addicted to all sorts of things, who at some point realized they had a choice and they made the choice to get help. And those of us who make the choice to, you know, to get help when we're sick, for those of us who make the choice to value ourselves and to help ourselves in certain situations, cut out the idea, please, all of you out there, cut out the idea right out of your head You know, stop with the if only he did this, or if only she said that, or why can't they appreciate me because. Forget that. Stop worrying about other people's responses. Stop trying to change somebody else's view of you. It's only when you change that other people will change, at least in their attitude towards you. You cannot change other people. You can only change yourself. And having a positive attitude, as hard as it is, I'm not saying it's easy by any means, but as hard as it is, if you just spend 5 or 10 minutes of every day, stand in front of the mirror and just say, I am a valuable human being. I deserve to be valued. And that way, you know, have that mantra, keep saying it, repeat it to yourself. And that way you will eventually get the point. You cannot change other people, so stop trying. You cannot, as much as I'm a fixer, you cannot fix another person's mind. You cannot fix another person's heart. And I'm not suggesting that you walk away and abandon all those people who are mean to you or horrible to you. I'm not suggesting that at all. But every time you play into somebody else's awful stuff, every time you play into that, you're abandoning you. You are abandoning you. So what I'm saying is to make sure that you don't abandon you, learn to value you. I might not be the nicest person in the world, but I'm not bad. I might not be the best parent in the world, but I do the best I can. That sort of thing. Value yourself. Learn to value yourself. Don't you think, Al, that that's important?
It is important, but I will say there is just like it's almost like when you're down or you're depressed. Not valuing yourself time and time again is almost it exponentially weighs on you, right? Because you stop valuing yourself. It's hard to for my own self, it's hard to, when you're in that moment, say I am worth something, or I am of value, or I am important, because you're already in that state of you feel like your self-worth or worth less, right? So it's really hard to get out of that state of mind.
This is what I like everybody out there who's in this situation to do, right? Visualize yourself as a hamster. I don't know if you've ever had a hamster, Al, or if you've ever seen a hamster.
I'm highly allergic to hamsters, so no.
Well, there you are. Every hamster cage that you ever see has a wheel, because hamsters need exercise, and they climb into that wheel, and they can keep going and going and going and going and going until they exhaust themselves. They'll fall off the wheel. What happens when they come to? Get back on the wheel. Visualize yourself as that hamster on the wheel. Unless you choose to get off, you will stay on.
Right.
And every time you find yourself falling back into that, oh God, this isn't working, what you're saying to yourself is, oh God, I'm a hamster. I'm a hamster. I'm on the wheel. I'm on the wheel. I'm a hamster. I mean, use visualization. In our classes that we're going to do, our online courses, I'm going to be teaching people the art of visualization and how being creative with the visualization process, you can actually determine, what happens with your life and how you can value yourself and how you can learn, to sustain that value. But all of you out there, wondering, it's like it's New Year. What is my New Year's resolution? Get off the wheel. Get off the hamster's wheel. Stop being the hamster. And every time you find yourself drifting back into it, every time you find yourself staying in the room while somebody's being rude or mean to you, and that you don't hold up your hand and say, I love you very much, but I have to leave now, and leave, get out and go do something fun. Every time you stay, you're the hamster on the wheel, and it just keeps going and going and going. People say to me all the time, but it's easy for you. I can't do that. Well, that's not true. We can all do it. How much do we want to do it? I know you've got a friend, Al, who continually tells you, well, I can't, and he makes excuses. Oh, well, I was too busy, or I was late, or, oh, well, it just wasn't the right time. And you hear people make these probably very often valid reasons, but not valid enough. Because if you want to do something, you will do it. And that's the end of it. You know, somebody said to me fairly recently, I can't meditate. Can you show me how to meditate? And I showed them how to meditate. And it was simply a question. It's simple, very simple. Find, 5 to 10 minutes in every day and do this little exercise. Who can't find 10 minutes in a day? I'll tell you who can't find those 10 minutes in a day. All those people who don't think it's important enough. They just don't want to do it. It's not important enough. So I know I do have therapy sessions with people. I do give people advice, but at a certain point, you're on your own. Because if I've told you 10 times and you're still not doing what I'm suggesting, you're on your own. You're on your own. I've got no time for people who don't make time for themselves. I've got no time for the people who say to me, but I really do want to change, but I'm the wrong person for you. Because at some point, I'll try, I'll help. At some point, if you keep going and saying the but, I'm going to ditch you. Because my time, this is what I'm talking about, people valuing themselves, my time is more valuable than wasting it on somebody who moans and complains all the time about these awful things happening, but they're not prepared to find that 5 minutes in a day to make a little bit of effort. And, so do I sound as awful as I feel right now? I don't really feel awful, to be perfectly honest with you.
No, but I think it's we talked about this a little earlier too, and it's about not just what's important to you, right? You could say something's important to you, but your actions are really what shows what's important to you, what you do every day. And if I go back to this scenario I'm in, if it was that important to me, if it bothered me that much, I would have something else lined up and be able to just let this go, right?
Already.
Yeah, exactly. And with anyone, with any of these situations, it's all about, if it truly is important to you, you make time for it. If a relationship is important to you, you make time for it. If it's I told you, learning piano, if that's important to you, you'll do it every day. Like anything that is important to you, your actions define whether it truly is important to you, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is why I think we had Karen on a while ago. Really, her attitude was amazing, stunning. She's an international sportswoman. She won a medal. But what she had to do to get it, and all these people out there who are achievers, what you have to do sometimes to get to where you want to be, you can see that for these people, it is important enough for them to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. It's important enough for them to give up dating. It's important enough for them to give up the things that most people would never even consider giving up. And I think, I feel so sad for people who have dietary issues. They eat and eat and eat, and they're going to explode. You know that at some point, something inside them is going to explode. It's going to be their heart. It's going to be their lungs. It's going to be whatever it is. Their body will at some point say, "I'm done now." It'll start to break down, and they'll say, "But I can't. I just can't diet." Well, it's because you don't value yourself. If you valued yourself enough, and you saw that you were worth the effort, you would diet. And I don't know quite how we can help people to understand that they have to value themselves. And I do feel very sad for people who don't value themselves, but all I can say is, God is there within us, and we all have a little bit of light. And if we work hard at that little bit of light and that little bit of good in us, and we nurture it, we start to value the light within us, and we start to value ourselves.
Yeah, Connie, we have a couple of comments. Connie was actually saying before that she was listening to every word you said.
Oh, bless her.
She is
Connie from yesterday.
Yeah.
I've been thinking of her on and off all day. And I don't want you to go and hide in a cupboard, Connie, out of the way of the awful stuff. I want you to go and embrace your life and the things that you find that are enjoyable and good for you to do. Life is, trust me, life is, she says, coughing and spluttering, life is so short for all of us. Even those of us who live to 100, it's still short. It goes in a blink. Don't waste your life on regrets. When I come to my maker at some point, as we all will, I'm hoping and praying that my regrets are so few as to I should be joyful.
We have Margaret or Maggie says, Rosemary, I was the hamster till the day I decided I could not live the way I was and divorced. She says that dark soul, although you say he's not.
Well, a dark soul is something else entirely.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, and we all of us have friends out there. We think, what is she doing with him? How is he putting up with that? We've all got our opinions. My own family, my own daughter. You're not ready till you're ready. You can't push someone into doing something until they're ready. But learning to value yourself and learning to understand and listening to these kinds of conversations hopefully inspires people to be ready sooner.
Yeah, Rosemary, I love what you said. You mentioned something before about advice, and I know I can give wonderful advice to people and talk about and tell people to value themselves and that they are important, and you can do it as good as anybody can. But then when it comes to myself, I don't heed my own advice. And was it Jeff's advice you said? It was a really great.
Jeff and Andrea came last week and brought me dinner, and because I've been too sick to cook for myself, I'm getting the violin out now, making it sorry for me. But excuse me. But they came and brought dinner, and Jeff and I were talking about. Actually, we were talking about the Native American culture, and he and I are very into that kind of stuff. We were just chatting about different things, and then we were talking about advice and so on. And he made me laugh. He said to me, "Here, take my advice. I don't use it."
Yeah, that's great.
And I have to tell you, having said that, the amount, I mean, Al, a lot of people out there can only wonder at how many consultations I've given to people, how many thousands, perhaps hundreds of thousands of people. I've been in audiences of thousands and gone to different people with different advice and so on. You have no idea how many times over the years, I've given other people advice, and I've been thinking to myself, I could use that advice myself. And sometimes it just inspires me. I'm giving it to somebody else. It inspires me to take it myself. And sometimes it's all, we all put off the things that we don't want to do. We all put off. It's strange, isn't it? Even when we're in an awful, awful situation, sometimes the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. So we hold on to that awful situation because we're afraid. We're afraid to take a step towards something else. But trust me, whatever the devil is you're dealing with, don't stand around. Get out. Move. Go into another room. Do not put yourself in a situation. Do not allow yourself to be abused. Do not allow yourself to be talked down to. Do not allow yourself to be belittled. Do not allow yourself to be devalued by those people who, let me say, are not worth that. Because when a person is that kind of a person who belittles somebody else, they really not worth your time or your effort. They're just not. You know, recently, my grandson is he's not quite 6. He'll be sitting, and it's breaking my heart because it'll be the first birthday I'm not going to be with him because I cannot get on a plane. That's beside the point. But he is a very joyful little boy. He sometimes, when he gets excited, he'll talk loudly. I mean, his mum and I, we laugh at him when he does it. Wouldn't you? I mean, that's what you want from your children. And there are times when he'll be playing with his trains, or he'll be sort of drawing or colouring or something, and he'll be singing away to himself. And, somebody actually told him to stop making that noise, stop. This person is a joyless person. Luckily, I wasn't about at the time because they would have felt my wrath, let me tell you. Don't destroy or try to belittle or try to dampen anyone's joy. Please don't do it. It's not necessary. And if you're the kind of person out there listening and you do that, it's because you are joyless. So stop damping down somebody else's enthusiasm, especially our children, who we want to be joyful and we want them to be loud and we want them to have fun, because that's what being a child is all about. If you're that kind of person who puts these people down, take a good look at yourself, because you need to find a little joy in your life. And for those people who are joyless, as irritating as it is to be around them, and especially when it comes to my child and my grandchild, don't do it in front of me because I'll have you. I mean, it's like I'm a very protective mother and grandmother. But on the other hand, looking at it, sort of sideways on, I can see that I can feel, as long as they don't hurt me and mine, I can see and feel very sad for them that they are joyless. But at the same time, I can't try to change them. I can only try to change my attitude and my behaviour towards them, and hope that, at some point it'll make a difference to the way that they treat the people that I love. Does that make sense in any way there?
It does.
This reminds me of a story. I'll be brief about this story. A few years ago, many years ago actually, I had a letter. That was in the days of no email, and it was actually a physical letter I had in my hand from a guy who was in prison. And he wrote, this letter was so sad. It was so awful. And he talked about how he was in prison for drunk driving, but that he'd gone and picked his 4-year-old son up. And it's a true story. Gone and picked his 4-year-old son up, and he got in an accident because he was drunk, and his little boy was killed. And he went on to say about his life in prison. He went on to talk about the remorse and the upset and so on. And he'd read one of my books, and so he felt that he could write to me and that I would understand. And it was a heartbreaking letter. And I read it to my class, this particular class. I read it out to my class. And then I asked them all, what did they think of it? And, did they want to help? And if so, how could they help? And every single one of those people in that room was sympathetic towards that man and looking to see and to try to find ways that we could help him. Because there's no doubt he needed help. And there's no doubt at all that the reason he wrote the letter was because he needed help. But then I turned it around on them and I said, now then, let's look at the flip side. How would you feel if it were your son or your grandson and a drunkard killed them And it was almost like any sympathy for this man went out the window. It was like complete reverse, because when you apply it to you, something often you apply it to you, you don't have necessarily the same tolerance, the same understanding, and you don't want to have the same tolerance and understanding, because when somebody hurts you and yours, it's a whole different thing altogether. It's very easy for all of those people out there. It was very easy for us to look at this letter and read this letter and feel, I felt such heartbreak for this man, because he obviously was remorseful. But I'm coming back to, we have choices. And if you are a gambler, or if you are an alcoholic, or if you're on drugs, and you can actually hear or follow any of this conversation whatsoever, I'm going to look you in the eye and say, as much as you are sick, and I appreciate it, you do have choices. And I urge them to make the right choice. You have choices. I'm urging you to make the right choice, which we're going to talk about later. Mary Lou, you have choices. Mary Lou got a new job a while ago. Would you like to tell people what she came to me for advice? It's quite a long time ago now, but it was a very high-powered job, and you were very doubtful, weren't you, whether you or not you could do it?
Yes.
And she came to me, she said, what should I do? Do you want to tell everybody what it is I said to you, which you use as a mantra now, I think?
Start as you mean to go on.
There you are.
And it's helped me tremendously.
Start as you mean to go on. Deal with people as you mean to go on with them. Deal with yourself as you mean to go on. Start from now. Start from this moment. Connie, if you're listening, start from now. Start as you mean to go on. And as hard as it is, and as much as you want to sort of back off, or as much as you said, Al, we get depressed, we get upset and so on. As much as it's hard for us, it's not impossible. You can continue as you mean to go on if it's important enough for you to do so. Got anything to say to that, Al? Have I just stunned you into speechlessness?
No, I think for myself, and I'm sure a lot of people out there, knowing what you need to do, but taking action on what you need to do and knowing what you need to do is a very different thing. And it's just a matter of taking action on what you need to do versus knowing and dwelling and beating yourself up about it, taking action on it and putting your energy towards that versus the other, right?
There are so many sayings out there, live each day as if it's your last. I'm trying to think of other sayings, start as you mean to go on. I mean, we've got so many good intentions, and we all know, every one of us knows how vulnerable as human beings we are, but we still, insist on carrying on as if we've got all the time in the world. But we haven't. And if you don't change your life now for the better, if you don't start valuing yourself, if you don't stop being a victim, some people love being victims, I know, but for most of us, we don't. So if you don't stop that way of thinking, before you know it, it'll be too late. It'll be too late. And then you'll be, blinking, and you'll be, I should have done something about that, or if only. I mean, I know the amount of people that I come across and the situations and the way that people die in a blink of an eye. One minute you're there and the next minute you're not. Believe you me, it happens more than you can think. Someone you love, and you're not speaking or whatever it is. Just stop it. Stop it. Life is short. For goodness sake, get over yourself, get over the situation, start valuing yourself. Either move on with your life, and if you want to drag someone with you, by all means, don't abandon, as I've said. But life is too short for us to be wasting it, with a lousy attitude, which is why we do these shows, right, Al? We're trying to encourage people to have a really positive and a really, outgoing and thorough attitude. Do we have any comments coming in from anybody out there?
We have Melly that was, she had a couple comments. Let me just scroll here. Sometimes you hear from a different person a lot of bad comments, and you start thinking that maybe they're right. When you hear bad comments from just one person, it's easy to just cut that person out. And we have Connie. She says, I love you, and I'm really working on this. Sharon says, better late than never. Sorry, I missed most of this. Every day is a gift, so we need to make the most of it and appreciate life. And then Maggie just said, fear is a hard mountain to climb over. And as you work to get over it, it's so hard, but work at it harder.
Well, yeah, fear is the stumbling block, I think, for so many of us, because we're afraid somehow that if we make a change, we're going to be in a worse situation. But, you know, what do they say? Trauma is simply another word for change. Embrace it. You know, that's what you have to do. You can't allow possibilities of disaster to stop you. I can remember when I was a kid, we were little kids, I might have been 7 or 8 or something. We were on the beach with my mother in Cornwall, and it's a very rocky coast. For those of you who don't know Cornwall, it's a beautiful coast, but very rocky. And my mother used to like to traipse us all the way up the beach to find that little cove, you know. And this particular late afternoon, we suddenly looked up, and the sea was coming in, and you know, she got 4 little girls, and as I say, I was about 7 at the time. She got 4 little girls, and she's standing there screaming and screaming, not actually taking any action to save us, you know, because my mother's a fire sign, and that's what she did. You know, it was all sort of the drama and the idea of, you know, 4 little girls not being able to swim. We couldn't get over the rocky cove and so on and so forth. And it's only in retrospect I realised actually how dire the situation really was. I mean, we were just terrified. Luckily, some people down the beach must have heard my mother screaming, and they, you know, these guys came running and they were climbing over the rocks. Also in Cornwall, the sea is rough. It's a rough sea. And we managed to, you know, to escape without drowning, obviously, because here I am today. But we managed to sort of get over that and climb the rocks or be hauled over, whatever it was. We managed to do all of those without one single scrape or scratch or anything. We all landed safely on the other side. And sometimes, I mean, these were total strangers who came to save us. Sometimes you've got to trust. There's this wonderful saying that I love this saying, and I use it a lot, and I tell people a lot. Allow the winds of heaven to dance between you and your fate. I do believe it's a Buddhist saying, but I don't care what kind of saying it is. I just love it. Allow the winds of heaven to dance between you and your fate. In other words, trust in fate, trust in the gods, trust that the wind will take you to a good place, to a safe place. You know, you jump off of a cliff. When you're making a decision, you jump off of a cliff, just like you did when you jumped off of the cliff and you left New York and you came to Colorado, Al. But you landed on your feet, right? Very rarely does somebody land on the rocks. Very rarely. So allow the winds of heaven to dance between you and your fate, and trust that God will keep you safe. Do you want to say anything more, Mary Lou?
No. That was really good. Thank you.
You liked it, did you?
Yes.
You got nothing else to say, no input? Do you want to say hello to everybody out there?
Hello.
Al, what do you have to say?
No, we're just about at time, but I appreciate your advice as always, and hope that everyone else heeds that advice and starts to value themselves. I know I continually try.
we can only hope, can't we? We can only hope. And I take it that your new resolution, one of your New Year's resolutions was that you were going to learn to play the piano. didn't make a New Year's resolution, but my grandson is learning to play the piano. My daughter is so disgusted with me because I actually can play the piano and used to play the piano really well. You heard that used to. So she thought that I could, sit down and play for my grandson and we'd have a blast. But you don't use it, you lose it. So I've got to I do have a keyboard. I've got to get my keyboard out and I've got to start practicing so I can play with my grandson. So good luck with that, Al. Keep it up.
Yeah.
Don't let people put you off by saying you can't do something. It's not that you can't, it's just that you won't. And I know that you can, so do. That's for everybody out there. And no matter what situation you are in out there, you can. All you have to do is take an action and get on with it. Stop making the excuses and just trust yourself, trust God, learn to value yourself. I think that wraps it up for now, Al. I can't believe my voice is held up so well.
Yeah.
I am getting better.
Yes.
Slowly and surely I am getting better. And thank you again for everybody out there, your lovely well wishes and so on. So Al, thank you. If you need to know more about us, Everything is Attitude info at everythingisattitude.com is the email. If you need to know anything about me or you want to know more about our online courses, email me rosemary@rosemariealtea.com and we shall answer you. We're going to be taking people, people can subscribe in the next week or two, I think. So we're really, really close to that. Also, if you want to just chat with Al and find out more about Colorado or how his piano lessons are going or whatever else you want, Al is an educator. He's a very smart guy. So if you want to know more about that, al@alpisano.com.
Correct.
And until we see you again next week, we should be there on Thursday in the morning, 11 o'clock a.m. Standard Eastern Time, where we'll be taking live questions. And we'll be here again next week with Everything is Attitude. So join us then. And until we see you again, please, 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 please have a very, very, very blessed day.